Why do so many people feel overwhelmed or reactive, even when life looks fine on the outside and there's nothing terrible? There's no immediate tragedy happening right now. Why are so many people in that place? Because a lot of people are. Welcome back to Pulling Threads, everyone. I'm Leslie, and today we're pulling a quieter thread, the one that lives beneath overwhelm, emotional reactivity, and that persistent sense of being disconnected from ourselves, even when life looks fine on the outside. This conversation is for anyone who's spent years holding things together, caring for others, moving from role to role, or waking up one day and realizing they're tired and not entirely sure why or even who they are anymore. My guest today is Maris Pasquale Doran. Am I saying that all correctly?
Pasquale, but that's very close.
Pasquale. Maris is a psychotherapist with over 2 decades of experience helping people, especially women, in midlife, helping them pause, reset, and reconnect with themselves. And her work centers on nervous system regulation, mindfulness, and identity reclamation. And she brings a grounded, compassionate lens to what it means to feel steady in our own body and life again. So, Maris, welcome to Pulling Threads. We talk a lot about unprogramming here, and a lot of unprogramming is necessary to do much of the work that you do, I imagine. So, thank you for being here. You've spent a really long time as a psychotherapist helping people navigate transitions. Can you talk about what drew you to this work and how your understanding of healing has evolved over time?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question and thanks for having me. It's great to be here. When I was really young, I've been fascinated with the brain for forever. I grew up in a town where there was a medical school. So I had a babysitter who was in medical school, showed me brain scans. I became fascinated with this idea of personality living in the head, in a sense, right? Human behavior. And that fascination really never faded. It evolved. I really found my place through college. I went to Georgetown and I thankfully had a professor who helped guide me specifically to an MSW program to really hone in that therapeutic relationship. Everything that I talked about that I was curious about or interested in or wanting to support people around was based in that relationship. That sort of brain stuff, the neuroscience of it has come back in a way that I feel so grateful for, because that is a center point in terms of a lot of the work and a lot of the potential, right? When we look at this as brain, our brain is not doesn't like change. Our brain likes predictability, these things. And then we say, well, we have an opportunity to sort of speak to ourselves, to shift, to transition in a way that has agency around it. I've been able to kind of take my curiosity from when I was even a little girl to my experience as a clinical social worker and then as a psychotherapist and kind of mold them into this current program that I have, Midlife Mothers Pause, Reset, Reclaim. And as you said so beautifully, it's really centered in nervous system regulation and mindfulness. And that piece for me became significantly stronger, both professionally, because I love research, I'm curious about this area, and I had the opportunity to teach in this area. I taught mindfulness in clinical practice at Columbia University, really loving to kind of get into it a little more from that lens. But especially for my personal life, my mindfulness practice, I really attribute to my having been able to show up as I wanted in the many roles that really clashed and collided when my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I had two young children at the time, rocked my world. He was a really significant person in my life as a mentor. That relationship was very significant. Showing up as a daughter was an absolute priority to me, and the way that could look and did look and that I wanted it to look during that very unique phase that we knew what was happening. It was
Yeah.
deeply, deeply, deeply painful. And
Yeah.
so, I can remember, Leslie, this isn't conceptual, literally looking myself in the mirror and saying, how do you want to show up for this? For this forevermore, this phase and time period will have been his dying, right? And I have no magic wand to make pain go away, but I attribute so much of the fact that this work that I've done for so many years and my mindfulness practice helped me be able to show up with a lot of intention, despite the fact that a lot of those roles were colliding and that it gets hard really to kind of differentiate which person is in the room in many ways. And then afterwards, my dad passed away the same week as New York City, which is the area in which I live, shut down for COVID. And so that very unique journey through, missing the routines and the kind of cultural milestones that take place typically and all of those pieces while having kids at home and the online learning and everyone around sort of all of a sudden focusing on this universal trauma while I was really deeply inhibited in this personal trauma. Continue to go back to that mindfulness practice that looks, many different ways. A mindfulness practice is a very broad concept that helped me stay relatively grounded, or at a minimum to come back to grounding. I don't know that it's possible to never be ungrounded, especially during that level of trauma. So
Right.
that's, kind of a long journey into one of the reasons that I really wanted to focus here in this program is because I've walked it, right? These ideas of emotional reactivity and being unanchored and all of this is not theoretical. It's really been lived. And I see it in clients and I've experienced it myself and my siblings with my peers right now. And it feels like this opportunity to show up for these women in a way to say, today's the day you can start transforming your life. There's no
Yeah.
waiting, right? The idea of waiting to show up for it. Things, unfortunately, are not going to slow down as we age. There are more, right, traumas that are typically around the corner. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of grief we give no attention to. There are those quieter layers. And I don't mean the quieter layers of death. I mean of
Right.
grief, of this phase
Agree.
of life, right? Of these dreams that are no longer, they're unfulfilled and accepting and mourning, all of those parts. And I think there's significant opportunity at this moment in time, especially with this conversation around midlife growing, to really identify how to show up right here and now using these nervous system skills to be empowered to celebrate this phase, right? To figure out how we got here and how we can celebrate and be empowered to move forward rather than being focused in that loss and deterioration and mourning exclusively.
First of all, thank you for sharing
Mm.
that journey and evolution. And I think it helps people when we're a little more vulnerable and we share how significant, I'm going to speak to mindfulness, has been in our own lives
Yeah.
and how it helped us through something so painful as losing a parent, especially to pancreatic cancer. I want to back up and say a couple things. Number one, I was very similar to you growing up, loving the brain and fascinated with it, and ended up finding myself at a fMRI lab in my late 20s looking at brain scans. And so it's so funny, there was a huge pause for me between that and then ended up going to law school, studying photography, but the brain was always there, right? Like, and then, yeah, it's so funny. And then, so when I went back to school to get my MSW, my clinical MSW, I was so at home and so excited to take the neuroscience classes, and everyone else was struggling, and I was like, "This is my jam." Like, in my very first career as a speech pathologist, I was a brain injury speech pathologist at WashU in St. Louis,
Oh,
so
beautiful work.
right, so the brain injury, the head injuries, all of the very unique neurological diseases, like, looking at scans was our da part of our daily practice, so
Hmm.
it's been so interesting now as a therapist, really understanding a whole different angle of how neuroscience plays into and our nervous system controls everything. So I want to just connect on that nerdy brain loving thing. And
That
at
it's
the
not
same
one or the other. I love that you're kind of integrating those, right? Like excuse my interruption. wild that this is your history. One of the moments I knew that I wanted to actually pursue my MSW was because I was fully focused on a PhD program, interviewed and received an opportunity at Stanford to do research on children with traumatic brain injury. And
Oh,
then
wow.
truly that closing of the eyes and like, I wake up, I go, what is the day like? Am I reaching, right? Am I reaching my goals? And this professor that I had when I really was talking about what I want long term and then what this job would provide me, and having to, and this is a lot of what my work is, having to sort of pull back from myself and say, what do I actually want to do outside of the Stanford of it, outside of the, this is what I've always wanted,
Yeah.
right? And really say, is this what I actually want? And he thankfully was really helpful. His wife had her MSW, and he was saying, like, from everything you're talking about, like, you want to be a clinician, not a
Right.
researcher. So I share so much. We have actually a lot in parallel. I'm so happy you shared that.
Yes. A second thing we have in parallel, my father actually also had pancreatic cancer. So I can relate, although our situation was really unique. He didn't have the aggressive form that most people have.
Mhm.
So he had a longer period of time, whereas most people pass so quickly once they get the diagnosis. So
Right.
I feel for you. I
Mhm.
worked with a lot of patients in the hospital dealing with and their families dealing with that and getting that news. And it's just so I feel for
State
you
it.
there.
Yeah. It's not a club any of us want to join. And then once you're in it,
No.
there is a
Yeah.
lot of beauty.
Yes. And the last like similarity or connection I want to put together, I discovered mindfulness and mindfulness based stress reduction specifically right before and while I was going through my divorce. Also,
Mhm.
a really traumatic
Yeah.
time, no matter how well you do it, like it's really traumatic. And MBSR and meditation and being able to come back, like you said, to that grounded center and say, like, I did the same thing. How do I want to show up for my kids today?
Mhm.
How do I want to show up in this meeting? And being able to become centered and grounded as much as possible every day. And
It's a
with
gift. Yeah.
one day at a time,
Yeah.
like one day at a time. The further ahead you move about worrying about the future, the more anxiety you have, the more you dwell on how things played out in the past, the more depressed you get. But if you can always bring yourself back to now, it's literally the most powerful tool in our toolbox, and we can all do
Mhm.
it. And
Mhm.
so I love that you really lived this and now you can share your experience going through the death of a parent. Many of the people listening don't, they don't come to therapy or they don't go to therapy or choose coaching a lot of times because of a major crisis. I work with a lot of women who are considering or going through divorce, so that those people are. But many people, it's just a slow build, right? Like there's no one thing, or maybe even it's a loss of a parent 10 years ago that they still
Yeah.
haven't dealt with. And they feel, internally like this tension and disconnection. Why do so many people feel overwhelmed or reactive, even when life looks fine on the outside and there's nothing terrible? There's no immediate like tragedy happening right now. Why are so many people in that place? Because a lot of people are.
Are. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think that's a great question. And I'm trying to just organize my thoughts here. So it's the buildup typically. So as you said, right, or maybe their parent died 10 years ago, or maybe, right, they went through significant infertility and now they're launching that child, right? And they never got to mourn that they had to go through this process, right? There's so much
Yeah.
emphasis on celebrate the good, which we want to. That's wonderful. Maintain that. And there's a lot along the way that we're not stopping and paying attention to and processing as it happens. We also
Yeah.
are in a culture of, we really applaud and laud busyness and sort of success being defined as the doing, right? So this kind of all of a sudden now I'm showing up and I am reactive, or I'm not feeling like myself anymore, or everything's kind of really tense. It's, well, maybe that's one of the first steps. Let's see that as an asset that you're noticing, because for so long we're not. We're pushing
Yes.
through, right? All the
Right.
women, I mean, I can give a million examples, especially with women, this kind of very loud pressure and some of the just undercurrent of culture, of this doing, of this idea of doing it all, right? Which is not
Yep.
actually possible.
Yeah.
I like to think of the metaphor, and I speak about this with clients so often, of like a pot burner, right? A pot of
Mhm.
water and a hot burner.
Yeah.
And ideally, we are in a place where the flame goes on, it builds the temperature and pressure and boils. The flame goes off and it comes down and cools down. This is, this kind of metaphor for our nervous system, right?
Yeah.
Most of us have been living for like decades,
Boiling.
or at a minimum simmering, right? We boil
Right.
and then we come down to just ready to boil.
Right.
We're almost there. Give me the sense of any kind of threat and I'm ready. I'm on. I'm
We,
doing.
yeah.
I'll
We almost
attend to
pride
this.
ourselves. Like we
Correct.
glorify
We do.
being in this high state multitasking and getting everything done
Yep. Look at
until
her.
until
She
we
came back from the baby so fast. She's breastfeeding while performing in this athletic thing. I say, wow. And I will applaud that person big time. I'm not trying to take that away, or that's not an extraordinary accomplishment, because it's impossible to balance. And that's not the standard for everybody, right? I hope that that human being is doing so because they're kind of stuck in a position where they had to figure out what got to lead and weren't willing to fully shed the other. Right?
right.
So instead we have these kind of stories in media and the attention that, and just through our culture, that this doingness, that busyness, that's attending to everyone. Oh my god, you're such a good mom, you do all of that, you're such a good mom. These concepts, these ideas that we have, these tropes of what good mom is, of what good woman is, of what midlife should look like, right? Of
Yeah.
what future building should be, what success is. And to stand really grounded and say, hold on, this is my actual lived experience in life.
Yeah.
I get one, at least in
Right.
this body and shape. It doesn't matter what your spiritual sense is, right? In this particular form and moment, I get one of these.
Yep.
I have some agency here, significant amount. We cannot change the external variables that are going to come at us. There will be trauma, there will be challenges, and how you show up for it hopefully can be with 2 feet grounded in the parts of yourself and what gets to lead, the roles that we have and what gets to lead. And that role collision, especially for women at this age and phase of midlife, is really profound. And that can lead to a lot of this reactivity, irritability, the anxiety. And a little bit of a tangent, but it's related to what you're saying. I am so celebratory about the fact that perimenopause is in the conversation everywhere right now, or at least certainly
Yes.
increasingly so. It's like so overdue.
Yeah.
So overdue to really look at. We have not been researched. We don't have the interventions. We have been, this is not your mother's menopause, right? That's right. And this is a wonderful thing to celebrate. Let's get all the attention on women, all the research on women, have the medical interventions available to us, have the conversations with your doctors. All of that is really important. And it's somewhat become a bit of a catch-all,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because of my perimenopause. Oh, this is my perimenopause. So,
Right.
whatever your interventions are, with or without HRT or anything else to alleviate some of your physical symptoms, your hormonal changes are definitively part of the picture. What I want to be cautious around is that it is definitely not the whole picture. There are so many other layers of mothering right now during this midlife period that are challenging. And the biggest one, as we said before, is a lot of this grief that we're not really recognizing, right? If I go there, will it take over? If I look at that, am I going to be just disappointed in the life I have, right?
Yeah.
We ignore it. We
Right.
try to quiet those sounds, those voices, and they're knocking really loud at this age. We are
Yeah.
watching our parents and our peers age, die, and we're curious about what is the legacy we are leaving. What is the
Right.
legacy that we're sending our children, the messaging, the role modeling? Who am I in this world? Have I lived a life according to my values? Whose values are they? Whose voice is this in my head?
Right.
Right? And again, I'll
Right.
say, yay, applaud. That discomfort, those symptoms, and if you're noticing, that's the first step. That's the first
Right.
step.
I
That
think
doesn't mean you're broken or doing it wrong.
no, and I think that we can choose between noticing and allowing ourselves to have an awareness, and if we need to grieve, or we can choose to shame ourselves for feeling what we're feeling, and I encourage everyone to let go of the shame. Like, there are a million reasons why the world tells us we should shame ourselves, but it's not necessary. And I think the noticing for women in this population, if we're being really honest and authentic, life is going to look different than what we thought it was going to look like. Marriages didn't work out, or relationships didn't work out, or we aren't running the business that we thought we would be running, or having the career we thought. Maybe we are staying home when we thought we would have a career, but that didn't pan out. Or maybe we thought we would be staying home. I definitely have a few people in my life who their dream was to be a stay-at-home mom. That's what they love doing. And husband left or something happened, they can't afford it. And so rather than acting as though pushing forward and acting as though those things didn't happen, noticing those feelings and allowing them to come up. You don't want to sit there for long, but allowing it to be is okay.
Yes, their information.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of my program and my work is like all those uncomfortable feelings or the feelings that we judge as being the quote bad feelings. Like these are information inputs of what your experience is and maybe where you want to show up and shift, right? We
Yeah.
can't change others. That's a big one. And when we're less reactive and more responsive, right? When our defensives aren't as strong and we can really receive the other person, possibly be a little more gentle around the lens with which we're viewing something, becoming aware of the stories we're telling ourselves, all of those tools and strategies to simply not carry it around like, I'm always using this like there's a bear chasing you in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that we aren't living mindfully and we're not in our present moment, which many, many, many of us have walked around not even realizing that we're not present. But once you have the ability to be present and be in your body, there's an unbelievable shift and in exponential increase in gratitude and joy and opportunity for joy. I sometimes tell a story of just after I had started meditating and I was working with someone both on a spiritual level and a mindfulness. I took my kids to Disneyland in California to meet some friends, and it was just before COVID. And there had been a huge shift in me where I could be present. I don't know if I had ever, I live in Florida. I've been at Disney World with my kids a million times. And I remember a distinct moment and a shift in me where we were in Cars World late at night. All
Mm.
three of my kids were there. It was just the four of us. And the feeling of joy, like my heart felt like it was going to explode. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I've been walking through this world without this feeling because I couldn't be present. I couldn't be in the moment because my mind was always racing, always racing. I wasn't allowing myself to be there. And it was such a dramatic shift that I can, visualize that very place, the whole feeling. And I latched onto it and noticed it in a big way and said, this is how I'm going to live my life.
Proof of concept, yeah.
Yeah. And it was
Yep.
like, oh, now that I've felt it, I'm not living without this any
Mm.
longer. And I've walked people through the process of like having that in their life. And it's just such a dramatic shift in them. So, your program, Midlife Mothers, Pause, Reset, Reclaim, speaks really clearly to this season of life. What do those words actually mean beneath the surface for women who've spent years caretaking or keeping themselves so busy that they need this? What does it look like?
That's a great question, and it dovetails from what you just shared, which is really beautiful, that to try to address any sense of thread of self-judgment or any punitive thought, like our brain wants, we might not want, but our brain wants to ruminate, right? Our brain does not like change. It wants to be able to predict, right? So if we are in a place, and this is so frequent, especially as caretakers, because there's a lot, right? You have 3 kids, as you're sharing, Leslie,
Yeah.
divorce, working, there's a lot going on. Your brain is making, the number one job of our brain is to protect us.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I got you. Let's predict this. Let's set ourselves up for this. What if that, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with us when we're stuck in those loops, when we are, living a phase of life that is wildly mentally chaotic. And there are these tools and strategies to notice by pausing, right? Being aware that it's even happening, taking that pause. And yes, meditation is a wonderful tool, so many other aspects. Mindfulness, another aim that I have is that, I guess it's like there was like a TikTok or something. I'm so mindful, so demure, or something like that. There's sort of this stigma around this idea that it's like really woo woo or unapproachable, or that it means meditation. I can't
Or turning
meditate.
off your thoughts.
Yes,
It's not
I
turning off your
can't.
thoughts.
My brain won't stop. Of course not. It's your brain. It will never
It
stop.
doesn't
That's not the
stop.
idea. That is
Right.
never the idea, right? So, mindfulness is you and I sitting here, and when you are speaking, I'm not preparing my next thing to say. I am
Yes.
listening to Leslie, receiving Leslie, and now we can have a beautiful flowing conversation. Right? One example, I am eating, I'm aware of what I'm eating, and I'm aware of textures and tastes and flavors. I often recommend to clients, start with something you're doing all day, every day anyway. Brush your teeth. How many of us, myself included, sometimes are like, all of a sudden the toothbrush is in your mouth, you're brushing your teeth, you're like, how did I get here? Like, I don't actually know how I arrived here. Like, the last 5 minutes, I've just sort of been like, ooh, groggily and going through the day, etc. Right?
Right.
Just being
Right.
aware of how you showed up, putting it on the toothbrush, putting it in your mouth. Those micro practices help, because they help you then in the moments that are wildly chaotic, or where there's so much external stimuli coming at you, that you have practiced that muscle, for lack of a better word, of
Yeah.
being able to be in the actual moment, of taking that pause, resetting yourself. Breath is a huge one,
Yep.
right? It can be invisible, it can be really dramatic, or it can be, so small, so slight. Noticing your physical self. What's going on with my physical self? Am I in the stance of a cave person afraid there is something in the prairie? The amount of us, or
Yeah.
when I meet with client, before I run any session, individually or as a group, right, we always set our space with breath and really are aware of our bodies. And the amount of people are like, oh, I needed that. It is living in our necks and shoulders. It is living in our jaw. And those
Yeah.
are invisible things. Those are invisible strategies that when we bring our mind to it, take even just a microsecond to pause, have a bit of a reset, to move forward aware of what is going on for you. My biggest belief clinically is that awareness leads to intention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And with the body work is so important because we don't realize our jaw is clenched
Yes, correct.
or chest. During COVID, I remember sitting in my bed, probably in freeze, when the news was all crazy and I was terrified. And I remember telling my ex-husband, at the time husband, my chest hurts. I knew my chest hurt. I didn't know it was my nervous system protecting
Yeah.
me. Not yet. And when I was in an EMDR session with my therapist around that time, and she would say, "Where do you feel it in your body?" And I was like, "Oh, oh, my chest hurts, or my feel it right here." So that was such a another huge step forward for me to acknowledge, oh gosh, I feel my emotions in my body. I was
Carrying
in
it
my
all.
40s. Like I was in
Mhm.
my 40s. Like, why didn't someone tell us this, you know, in school? Because when you feel it, when you have an awareness that these strong feelings are going to show up in your body, and you're in the habit of scanning your body, pausing and scanning your body from head to toe, you can gauge like how intense one thing or another is impacting you.
Mhm.
And then that you said that's information. And then you determine how do I need to move forward, or do I need to just sit? What do I need to do right now?
Right.
How
Does this
bad is
pause
it?
need to be bigger? Does this pause need to be longer or bigger? Right?
Right,
Because
right.
to be really clear, you know this, but just for any sort of listener, etc., like
Yeah,
the idea is not to get rid of tough feelings, right? The
right.
idea is that those tough feelings are uncomfortable and you have the skill set and the ability to be in them.
Because what most people don't realize, I think, who have not done any work with nervous system, is that if you ignore them, they don't go away.
Yes, exactly.
They store.
Exactly.
And most of us are walking around just pushing through.
Exactly. It gets back to the question of like, why now? That wasn't your question exactly. I'm paraphrasing, right? But this midlife moment of people like,
Yeah.
what? Because there is this push through. And guess what? It worked. So
Yep.
that's the other thing for many, not for all, right? But it worked. Well, that's uncomfortable. I don't need to look there. I'll compartmentalize as if
Yep.
compartmentalize is like a really wonderful skill to be lauded. Well, in a moment, you don't want to let your reactivity lead in a work meeting, right?
Right.
There's a sense where you
Right.
can kind of shift and say, hey, you can be in the car, but you can't drive.
Yep.
That's not what most people are talking about. They're saying they're shoving it aside and saying, if I don't pay attention to this, it'll dissipate. And to your point, that is not true. This is what I often say to clients. It's like it will come knocking, and that knock starts to get louder and louder as it's grown, as it gets bigger. It is knocking and saying to you, hey, I'm here. I'm looking for some attention. And
Yeah.
that does, and if you look and give it that attention, it does not mean that suddenly you're never going to get off the floor again. You're going to give
Yeah.
in to grief or difficulty or anger. The idea is not that you will not experience difficulty, challenge, or hard emotions and feelings. It's that you can experience them, allow them to be information inputs, be okay within them, and then be responsive rather than reactive. We see this
Yes.
with kids so much in mothering,
Mhm.
so many clients, and myself included, of course. The cycles of guilt and shame. There's
Yeah.
a reactive moment. Oh, God, the cycle of guilt and shame that happens,
Yep.
right? So the idea is not that you're not going to be upset with your child. And in fact, you have to be. They're looking for you to set boundaries around them. There's going to be
Right.
things that are upsetting or where, you need to set boundaries and barriers for them, right? They're
Yep.
looking for that, whatever the age. I don't care if they're a toddler or if they're 26 and technically launched, quote unquote, right? They need that and want
Right.
that. You may have a reaction. The feeling is not the problem. The feeling is okay. The feeling is a part of you that really values something that is sort of at threat or that you want to deliver to your child, whatever it might look like. It's the reactivity, it's the snap, it's the irritability, it's the yell that obviously is not received well by the child. It enters into this cycle of guilt and shame for the mom.
Yeah.
And at midlife, I think we're really looking at most of us not with our eyes wide open, but
Mhm.
subconsciously thinking, what is this legacy that I'm leaving? What is this role modeling? What do they think of me?
Yes. We are trauma informed clinicians, so we have an awareness. But I think in general, people are becoming more and more aware of trauma. And that trauma doesn't have to look like getting hit by a truck or watching something terrible happen in front of you or being, robbed. Trauma can be something that we say to someone. Trauma can be the way we react to our kids and show up as trauma in them. And so there's this awareness, but we don't quite have the tools yet to prevent it. So
And the
that,
awareness is almost being in the immediate almost work because then your shame is deeper.
yes, because then the shame is worse. That's what I was going to say. And so I think the key is in the pause. Like it's so much in the pause. And modeling that for your children is really powerful too. My kids will also say now, remember when you used to yell all the time? And it's painful for me for them to say it But then I also feel proud of myself for, they're saying used to. So I show up much differently now than I did before I had this.
And how
And
beautiful that you can also now role model to them
right, and we talk about
change
it,
and evolution.
what it felt like to have a mom who blew up because
Mm,
she was overwhelmed. It wasn't because I was a bad mom, it was
right,
because I was overwhelmed.
right.
In my 30s, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do with my life at that point in time. I was very lost, like many women are. When your children are little, we can simultaneously love them and be completely, totally overstimulated. And without the toolbox to calm our nervous system and press pause, and without giving ourselves permission to do that, of course, the pot is going to boil over. And they're going to be on the receiving end, or your spouse, or if you're working, the people you work with. So, what you're doing, the population of women that you're working with, like it's so important. What do you think most often gets uncovered? Like
The
when
grief.
people start looking,
I
grief.
think it's the grief. Yes. The unspoken layers, like I was saying before, right? So a lot of people will be able to access the larger grief. My spouse, my parent who passed, watching a friend go through an illness, things that are sort of more culturally accepted and
Mhm.
discussed, right? That's an quote obvious grief. Now that doesn't mean that we're always processing in the way that is best for us or even looking in the face. There's still the push through and all of that.
Right.
So I'm minimizing that the huge relevance of that experience. It's the quieter versions. It's the wow, I'm not moving to Paris and walking home from work and getting a baguette. Like that dream has maybe closed,
Yeah.
right? Or has closed. That version of that dream
Right.
has
Doors.
have closed, right? That's hard to look at and accept.
Yeah.
And again, my work in this empowerment is like, and what does that feel like what is that grief? So we grieve it, we look at it, we know it, we accept it, and then we say, and what does it tell you? So guess what, maybe you do want to spend a month of your retirement every year in Paris, like the dream, or what was about that you wanted newness, you wanted a metropolis, you wanted language. Well, where do you access that in your life now? Let's dig at the values that we're talking about, right? And then try to say, let's get at those to inform what's next. But it does begin with actually being aware that a lot of this is hard. A lot of this is grief. A lot of this is this shedding of self that is happening naturally that's really challenging. Women feel so isolated. That's the other thing is it's like we're 50% of the population. And by the way, everybody's going to go through this. This is not a unique thing. This
Mhm.
is lifespan,
Yeah.
period. Every
Yeah.
single one of us has gone through it and will go through it. And we don't attend to it or really identify all these parts of it, which is really challenging. And I think the other piece that's been really powerful, well, there's many, but this kind of, rooted in narrative work, this like, what's the story you're telling yourself?
Mhm.
Because when we talk about, okay, what is the story you're telling yourself and who put that story there?
Yeah.
And who gets to from here moving forward. And so
Right.
many, I don't care if you are 38 or 58 or 78, that story is often, your parent
Yeah.
or someone from your childhood, right? That you
Yep.
say, or frankly, a story that you've misinterpreted your whole life,
Yes. And
right?
or a story that you told yourself to survive
Yes,
a traumatic
yes,
period. So
yes.
I for years, the story came from 8-year-old me. Like at
Mhm.
the point in which my parents were going through their divorce, I told myself a story about who I needed to be to not be end up in my mother's situation. And it was tied around academic achievement. Like you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to. That story was written by an 8-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet my life has evolved around that story until I recognized it
Mhm,
at late 40s. And
mhm.
that is incredible because nobody would ever put an 8-year-old in charge
Yeah,
of your
exactly.
future. No one would ask an 8-year-old what should be important in my life right now, or who should I be, or for any advice, as a matter of fact. And yet, so many of us are walking around holding on to a narrative that was written by a younger version of ourselves, and we don't even.
And we don't realize it, and that it might have been working. It sounds like, I mean, I don't know each other personally, but it sounds like you've had a tremendous amount of academic success that has allowed for you to have a really flexible career and pursue all these paths. It's not a bad story. It
No.
has led to successes, right? There's this also unidentified fear of what if I loosen the grip on that, right? Because it's
Yeah.
worked,
Yeah.
because it's worked. Most of the women, at least in my life, that are accessing my therapeutic work or my coaching work are pretty high achieving. You know, they're looking for some help. So they're pretty high achieving women. It feels very frightening to think about change. And again, our brains don't want it. So that feels threatening. And it really
Yep.
does feel threatening. And to be able to say, you can hold both. That's the other big thing,
Mhm.
right? Replacing, really being able to hold on to the dialectic, the and. Life is not the but, it is the and,
Yeah.
right? I've been holding
Yeah.
this story, but I've been holding this story, and now another storyline gets to lead,
Right. Right.
right?
I want to touch on a storyline that I think many women are running that we don't always want to talk about because I think, and it also falls in line with the perimenopause
Mm.
issue and the grief around our bodies. And obviously, not everyone is going through that. But I know for me personally, like having children, the amount of self sacrifice that has to be made in order to just do that, just that. We don't talk about or say it's okay to grieve the body we used to have, the energy level we used to have, whatever it is, the sex drive we used to, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We
All of
don't.
the above.
Right. And it almost, at least I think for my generation, like it felt taboo or bad, right? To think about your body or worry about it, grieve it. Like nobody's talking about that. Do you see that showing up for the women that you're working with?
Yes. And I think, this related to that body image, how I'm presented to the world, right? This, as I age, I become invisible. We're living within a cultural context, full stop, right? So, like it or not, we're hoping to shift culture. Women need, should, and deserve to be known for much more than how they are physically presenting in the world. And, right, whether it's subtle, whether it's overt, how you walk into a room, all of it. Obviously, the grander messaging that we get from media, and can get into the social media of it, right? So as that starts to shift, a lot of women I see, it's like they feel like the word they'll use, like, I feel gross. They're not
Yeah.
wanting to be harassed. Like, that is not what I'm talking about. And there
Yeah.
was an attention
Yeah.
that, you know, felt something. It might have felt gross. It
Right.
might have felt good. It might have felt whatever it
Right.
might be, but there was this,
Validation,
yeah,
whatever.
yes.
Yeah.
And this sense of invisibility, this sense of, I'm not getting like my order taken at the bar quickly. I'm not, right? There's like, all we can laugh about the kind of small examples, but you're talking about it in a bigger sense, and it's worthy to that there is shift and change,
Yeah.
right? I mean, look at the fact that we even go through menopause. What is our value biologically now?
Yeah.
Right? And our male cohorts don't have the same experience. Now they're aging, sure, but this idea of virility, et cetera, like, what does it even mean to be in perimenopause and then menopause? Obviously, your loss of fertility. That's the other big piece too. I mean, many are like, woohoo, no more period. Okay, great. I can't wait to get to the other side. No more hot flashes. No more. All these physical symptoms are really tough, right?
Yeah.
So we want to. There's a mourning there too. What does that mean? How am I valued in culture and society, and have been throughout centuries? What's my
Yep.
purpose, right? That's heavy, sure. And if we're willing to look at it, we can decrease some of the isolation around it. That indeed, that is part of this, that is real right now,
Yeah.
right?
It's
And that we're
real and
giving
it's
messages. We're giving
yeah.
messages that it's not okay.
Right. And we're allowed to feel whatever we feel about it, what we're going through. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. So many, I think, high functioning women describe losing themselves. in their roles, mother, partner, professional. What does it take to shift from constant doing back into being?
What is the doing for? Right? So for so many, like the amount of women I know and that speak to me professionally and personally that are enslaved to their task list, and I'm one of them. I love a task list. I like checking off that box. It feels great. I thrive on productivity, right? There's a tightrope here.
Mm,
Where does this help me? Because I'm a person that, it does feel nice to do that. Organization, I thrive on structure, right? There's things like that that are me that I can look at and say, yeah, that is me. And I'm going to step into that fully and allow this tool to be helpful to me. And where is it that it is a barrier for me to looking at the actual lived experience? My task list is not my life. This is my actual life. And if we're constantly in the what's next, I can guarantee every single person on this planet, the task list will never be cleared.
right.
So when we are run by it, rather than maybe taking some empowerment of what it gets to look like and where it might benefit our lives, right? That's the space to shift, to kind of
Yep.
start transitioning, right?
Yep.
And to even also know all the roles that we do hold. So a lot of us are like, well, I'm a mom and I work. Okay. Well, there's a lot of other parts too, right? You're probably your household CEO, maybe CFO. Do you do the shopping, the cooking, the cleaning? We talk about the mental load now. Awesome, because many women are holding that more. There's a lot
Yep.
of literature around the third shift for women, right? We come
Yep.
coming home, we're now have all the household tasks to do. The transition also, I think this is sounding a little bit tangential, please excuse me, but the shift also from being a primary caretaker to your children to likely still being the primary caretaker for your children,
Yeah.
in some ways celebrating and mourning that they naturally are now more independent.
Yep.
Right? Starting in teenager, they're supposed to. This is individuation. This is what is supposed to happen in terms of human development, right?
Yeah.
Wow, we could go off for a whole entire podcast episode about children who launch and the other
Totally.
pressures that happen now for women. And this, whereas they used to be contained from, let's say, 8 to 3 at school, now they're able to call you anytime. And they get that call, like the amount of women are like, I feel like I'm now on call in a way I haven't been in a small chapter of years. I didn't have little kids. We had some level of pseudo stability, and now they're off, and I'm on call again because if they call me, I don't know if they will again in days or if they'll pick up or if they need me as an emergency. There's no anchor at home to kind of come back to. So
Yep.
that's a major transition. And at the same time, for many people, if we're fortunate enough to have our parents and have a relationship with our parents, we are indeed sandwiched, right? This sandwich
Right.
generation time that they have a lot of needs, and they can be like my experience or like yours, despite it being longer, where it's illness based. Often it's aging. It's this pre grief. It's this anticipatory grief, which is distinct from grieving who your parent once was.
Right.
Two
Right.
different kinds, right?
Yeah.
So that relationship has changed. Their abilities are different, sometimes physical, sometimes, significantly otherwise. They are
Yeah.
aging. Now all of a sudden they're caretaking for them. I've heard this so many times from women of like, I thought that my caretaking was going to finally relieve, and I just got sucked up into a new cycle with my parents. So there's
Right.
this forever caretaking, right? And
Yeah.
so, kind of trying to pull it back to your question, Leslie, excuse me, I can go on and on, right?
No, it's
Is
okay.
like to identify really what are the roles you're even holding and playing. Is there any space to soften around any of this? Right? What are the stories you're telling yourself? The things that the 8-year-old said, the things that culture is telling you about good daughter, good mother, good wife, good neighbor.
Yep.
Looking those in the face, what does that look like for you?
Yeah.
It's so generic, but I'm going to go back to it, right? It's like your mask on first. If we are
Right.
constantly
No, I love.
in the go, 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 and we are constantly showing up for everybody else, we're going to be depleted. We already
Mhm.
are.
Yep.
And that's going to lead to worse relationships.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
faster
And as
aging. And
generic
faster
and
aging,
as
by the way.
overused as it is, like the whole idea that the mask has to go on you first is critical because you
Critical.
can't show up for everyone else if you're not taking care of yourself.
And you don't mean I don't think either. Just because these things are great. Keep self care.
Yeah.
Keep a massage, keep the workout class, keep the girls get together, keep those
If
things.
they're
That's
not adding stress,
wonderful.
yes.
Yes, sure. Whatever's working for you in terms of that,
Don't let them become their own
that's right.
depleting,
That
but
is
yes.
so right.
Yeah.
And the true self care of shifting to some actual curiosity of your lived experience and meeting
Mhm.
that with compassion,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, over the holiday season, we just got through the holiday season. Can we find calm in the chaos? Like that kind of rhetoric.
Yep.
Yeah, we can find more calm in the chaos, that's for sure. What I want to talk to clients about and do is what's the chaos for you? What is that, right? I have to do this tradition. Guess what? If there's a tradition that's wildly important to you, know where it's coming from and why. What value it hits to you and why. Focus there. That's what you want. That is authentic to you in your real life right now. And where are there opportunities to shed? Where there are moments that are being built around you or pressures that are there that are being externally informed, you can
Yep.
adopt those. Say, yeah, that external input is legit. I want to do that, right? Making that
Yep.
meal, that is important to me, right? I'm
Yep.
not saying get rid of it all and make it easier for yourself. And then you're accepting it because of the value it holds for you. And so holding the distress of some chaos is okay. It's still a little chaotic or it's still a little bit busier. And that can be happy and exciting to a degree, right? Or you can say,
Yep.
well, this is chaotic, but I choose it. I
Yeah.
choose it
I'm
rather
choosing it.
than
It's very
being
powerful.
pulled through the world, right? Or having your emotions lead you. Like these women are on like a roller coaster in the dark,
Yep.
and just getting taken around any kind of curve, feeling like the emotions lead them. And so we're
Yes.
saying, let's align what's happening here. That's that grounding, that's that anchoring to really show up fully as yourself. We can't necessarily decrease all the busyness or all the roles you hold, but where
Yep.
can be we start with being curious and compassionate? And then maybe there's some opportunity to be softened around some of the kind of obligatory aspects.
Yes. And I think in addition to all of that, which is so powerful, I also identifying what calm looks
Yeah,
like
that's great. That's
and where
great.
do you find that? Like where your calm space, how does that feel? Recognizing how it feels versus something else. Because if that is your peaceful place, that's my peaceful place, then the goal is to be there as much as possible and get back there, right?
Mhm.
So I love this idea that you just gave, though, of taking inventory of everything that's on your plate and identifying the things that are important and the things that are necessary, and then even identifying how you can show up in those things and naming the chaos, right?
Right.
Okay, I know
Right.
that it's going to be chaotic because of, I have a deadline, but naming things is really powerful
Yep.
and it's simple, but we don't do it. We walk through. I had a meeting yesterday with a mentor, and I was really excited to tell her all of these things that I have going on. And I was like, and she stopped me and said, wow, are we doing all of this at the same time? I was like, oh no, like that's happening in March. I don't have time right now. But she did make me kind of go through a little bit of a process that you're describing. Okay, what's the most important thing right now, Leslie? Like, what's the most important thing? What can we put off till March? What can we put off until April? Like, because I did need a little bit of a reminder because I love what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Exactly.
For all the people who are listening who are coaches and therapists and entrepreneurs, don't miss the opportunity to be present in the thing that you're doing or the things that you're doing because I'm running a course teaching therapists and coaches how to start their own podcast. And I'm so excited about it. I could easily power through this and miss it, right?
Yes,
Even though I'm
exactly.
physically showing up, I
Exactly.
push through as I'm also building a course for women going through divorce. I could roll those both out, but I don't, I want to show up. And I want to see this. I want to see other people accomplish something that I helped them through.
Mm.
And I don't want to miss it.
Yeah, good for you.
So it takes active thought of and pausing to say, wait a minute, I don't want to miss this. Like, I'm here for it.
And that's
And I,
threatening to a lot of people.
yeah,
That's
yes,
the real kind of pulling the thread. What's at threat here? And or what's at threat if you let this part go? This thing, right?
yeah. I think people often think about emotional regulation as a mindset issue. And we touched on this before, but I want to go a little bit deeper. How do patterns in the body show up before the mind even has like a language, before we can name it? How does it show up for people?
So, well, let's even start with the mind, right? We've got neural patterns, we've got neural pathways. They are grooved. We have super highways going on, right? So, another advantage of this pause, and I use this analogy a lot in work, is like get off the exit. Or I had a client once joke with me, a man actually, and he said, there is no exit. I'm like, you're getting out construction material, right? It's hard work. You don't want to be on this. Your partner says this, you react this way. This is patterns. You're both ready to go. You're familiar. Brain loves familiar, even when it doesn't feel good. And
Yeah.
you're ready to go. This is that neural pathway that has been grooved for all kinds of time based on your role modeling and your culture, all the things we know. And now we want to say, whoop, I have to be real intentional. And for him, as the joke, right? And actually build an exit ramp to get off of this.
Yeah.
Now, the body for sure is going to hold a lot of that will recognize. We talked about this a bit earlier, right? End of day. Oh my God, my neck
Mhm.
hurts. Oh my
Right.
God, my stomach hurts. Oh my gosh, my chest. Taking the breath, this is where it can be invisible. So you can be in a meeting with your boss, right? You can be talking to your teen who is being so defiant. And it doesn't have
Yep.
to be, because I also have clients who have said to me, when I take some big dramatic breath, like that's received poorly by the person
Yeah.
I'm with or
Yep.
something, right? So we're not necessarily always talking about that. We're talking about just knowing that that breath is not stopping in your throat or stopping in your chest.
Yep.
When you were a mom to a baby and a baby was laying down, their little bellies were
Yep.
rising and falling, right?
Yep.
And so many of us, myself included, breathe from our chests. So just kind of getting that full breath there so
Yeah.
that you're giving those signals where you're actually turning on your parasympathetic nervous system, where you're activating that vagus nerve. These are your calm down systems, right? You know this better than I am sure, right? Our amygdala is our fight or flight. Oh my God, there's a lion in the prairie. Alarm bells are going off. And it's not, I oversimplify this beyond. So, excuse me to any neuroscientists and neurobiologists out there, but that system cannot be fully on like that when we are activating the parasympathetic nervous system and that vagus nerve. They are helping to sort of counterbalance that threat and then, therefore, that threat response. And you said it beautifully earlier, and I didn't want to interject, but say just putting thought to it, right? Chaos
Yep.
or stressed or whatever is going to activate our prefrontal cortex. Same
Right.
thing. Anytime we're
Right.
activating these other areas, we're not being fully led by this fight or flight pattern, this amygdala, this threat response,
Yep.
right? So that's
Yeah.
where these are all kind of lived in this body. And that's where I go back to pot on the stovetop.
Yeah.
Because when you never come down from that, have you ever read the book or know of it, the concept? I'm more familiar with the concept of why zebras don't get ulcers. This is a great idea of like
Oh, I've never
the
heard of
zebra sees the lion, the zebra's like threat, running, 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 all these pieces. Lion is gone, they are safe. They go back to eating. They're
Yeah,
chill.
I've read about that concept. Like most animals do not
They'll stay in it
continue on in this state of fight or flight.
the way that we do. So
Yeah,
something about that, right? That's that bodily holding. That's that, right? So, oh my God, the school calls. Now, look, of course, my kid has terrible food allergies. The school calls,
yeah,
that's appropriate. I am a little,
yeah,
I need to be aware.
yep,
And I definitely don't, when I'm in conversation with you, need to hold that.
yeah,
That is distracting. It makes me not present for
right,
this conversation.
right,
That's not real. I will
right,
be gentle and compassionate around myself because my value as a mom is to keep him safe. Of course,
right,
I may go through those moments. And then
right,
I'll speak to myself. That's not what I need to be worried about right now. And I don't have control
right,
about that piece. In fact, I've done everything I can control. He's got his thing, he's got his epi, whatever, right? Whatever the scenario is,
right,
you've done your piece. It is of value, so you've shown up to it. You're not frozen. You haven't taken no steps. And that doesn't have to live so that you're walking through your day. Shallow
Yeah.
breath, shoulders up. That simple through the belly and then consciously releasing those shoulders is going to give your brain all the signals that there is safety here.
Yeah.
And our brain may still try to say, like, no, 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 but we have to threat evaluate. Okay, this is natural. This is normal. You're not doing anything wrong. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with you. And continue to use those strategies and continue to implement those skills because nervous system regulation, this is not an effort based skill, it's based on repetition.
Right.
Those micro moments matter. The
Hmm.
unclenching of the jaw and putting your tongue on the roof of your throat, just to kind of make sure that you're not grinding or holding it together. When you remember to do that because it happens to be a red light, or because, you're cooking something, or while you're waiting in the school pickup line, or while you're on the phone, those micro moments of giving those bodily signals to brain, I'm safe. I can guarantee you've got the task list is huge, you've got a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of external inputs. So it would be common and natural to be very tense and to be giving some threat signals. You're not wrong, and you've got the very kind of accessible practical tools to keep being very repetitive on teaching that nervous system. Oh, no good. Oh, no, we're safe and okay.
Yeah, that is such an important point that you're making. I want to re-say it, like,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's so important for people to understand that the act of practicing being mindful and being in the moment and relaxing your body and body scans, the reason why that's important is because in the moment when there is danger or there is a phone call from the school and the first thought is, oh God, what if something bad has happened? I mean, our school nurse, when she calls, she says, everyone is
It's
okay.
okay. Me too. I love these
And
verses.
I am literally holding my breath, like,
Best.
oh, you know,
Everything's
I,
fine.
I also have a child with really severe
Ah,
allergies, so I can relate to that.
yes.
So when we're in the habit of telling our body that we're safe, even when we don't need to, we will do it more quickly and more efficiently. And it will be one of the first things we think of when there is an actual potential threat. And then when we realize it's not a real threat, we calm ourselves so much more quickly because we're in the habit of doing that.
Right. We're
I've trained. And that's why programs like MBSR, programs like yours are so important. And it's important because of the training and the habit forming to have that. That's part of the tool in the toolbox.
absolutely. And that's the real self-care. I don't even know if I finished this
Mhm.
thought earlier, but when we were commenting on like the things like getting together with friends or quote unquote typical kind of self-care and what we've
Yeah.
been kind of taught it looks like, spoiling oneself, etc. That's great. Do it. If it doesn't cause more, right? I know way too many women, and I get it. We miss our social interactions. There is a lot going on as caretakers, especially
Yeah.
straddling these generations, especially if you're also working a job outside the house, right? There's
Yeah.
so much happening that we want that female connection. We want those friendships. We know that it's the biggest factor towards longevity. I mean, all these things, keep it up. And when we are running from a meeting to the pickup, to the drop off, to the dinner. Okay. The dinner is the thing that might help you if you are not pausing within any of that, even at the red light, to put your shoulders down, to put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. That's that real. I believe so deeply that the wisdom and the awareness comes from stillness. And if you're not going to access it within a formal practice, access it in the small moments you can,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that those sort of more, external kind of self care moments that they exist and that they help kind of the foundation of who you are. I love Kristen Neff's work, right? Self compassion, just that hand on a heart.
Oh, that's my first
Yep.
every time that, and I say, it's okay. Another thing that I teach people and I use every single day is 5 minutes in the car. Like if I pull into the garage before I get out of the car, I do have a formal practice too. But even with that, just giving myself a minute to recalibrate and just focus
Beautiful.
on my breath. And I love the creative thoughts, right? The ideas, your creativity can flow when you feel safe. And oftentimes things will come to me while I'm in that 5 minutes in the car. I'm like, oh, a solution to a problem I had earlier in the day that seemed impossible to figure out. And I take my 5 minutes and focus on my breath. And then all of a sudden it's really clear. Oh, it's really
Mm-hmm.
obvious.
Mm-hmm. And that
So,
car moment too, excuse me,
no, it's okay.
that car moment too, I love because wherever you're coming from, you're probably in a different role and hat than when you're pulling into
Yeah,
the garage,
it's a
right? And
reset.
yeah, it's a reset. And to really be aware of, well, how am I walking into now this? That was never more obvious to me than when my father was sick, because I was grateful enough to live only an hour away. And so I could do, preschool drop off, race down there, spend time, race back up, right? Or go into the city, go to the appointment, whatever it looked like.
Yep.
And woo, that's a lot of roles. And that's a real kind of quick change whiplash to try to sort of show up intentionally. If I'm walking into this moment now as daughter, what do I want from this? How do I want to show up? I'm caretaker and daughter, by the way, to two people,
Right.
and it's different. And then now home to these young people, which they were also very young at the time in my experience. And so, they were had a lot more needs, frankly. And I had
Yeah.
to be very developmentally appropriate of how to talk to them and things like that, right? So like really kind of putting on that hat. And as I said before, letting certain things shed. If today and God, I love our preschool. They were so amazing. But if today I have to say, can they stay after in this little program that they do? No, I was not able to do the sign up so that they're there for the semester.
Yeah.
I told them what was happening as needed, right? If today they're staying a little bit extra, it's the priority here is that they're safe and they're okay. It is not
Yep.
necessary that mom picks them up at this time. That
Mm.
rigidity needs to be softened because it will allow me to show up more fully in where I want to be, which is both.
Right. Right. Yes. I want to shift a little bit. First, I want to ask, do you have any time constraints that we need to worry about?
Oh yeah, thank you. I have a 1:30 client.
Okay. I want to, if it's okay,
Mhm.
touch on something we've haven't really discussed at all and how this shows up in relationships because many women stay stuck in people pleasing, emotional reactivity, and men. And I have found in my own relationship now, which is a much healthier relationship, that like we talk about polyvagal, like we have systems in place so that if one person or the other person is not regulated, we're not going to have important conversations. Like, and that's been life changing for both my boyfriend and I. And I work with a lot of women who are either struggling in their marriage or they've recently gotten out of a marriage and they're out meeting people. And because I think most people are just walking through life in a reactive space, I feel it's important that we start really teaching people all of these mindful practices in the context of relationship. It's a huge undertaking though, right? Because there are so many pieces to put together and so many people to teach and educate on their nervous system. And then trying to teach people how to understand their partner's nervous system is a whole nother, right? We came into our relationship, me anxious and him avoidant. And we've been able to navigate that because he has a better understanding of my anxious nervous system or had, and I understood his avoidant nervous system well enough for him not to run and for me not to chase, right? But it's taken a lot of educating him, educating myself, and understanding. But what do you think? What do you think the first like relational piece of this can be offered to listeners who would like to just improve their relationship dynamic, or we can do that one first. Or if you are a person, I think many women are anxiously attached and they're out in the dating world and it's really hard. So, first, I'd like to talk about the person who's in the relationship and they need help making it work. And then for the person who's out there meeting people and trying to navigate all of our nervous system responses. Do you have anything to offer in those two situations?
So, first of all, beautiful work that you're doing. And I think that's incredible and comes from your background. And obviously, your partner is open and willing, right? Which is
Mhm.
where it starts, right? We can't, you know,
You
we
can't
can't make
change people.
somebody, yeah, we can't change people and we can't change their motivations for
We can
things. What we
educate them,
can
and
do,
then they
yeah,
can choose to change, but yeah.
yeah, we can educate and we can role model. I mean, that's the other thing is that at the risk of being condescending to a partner in any way, shape, or form, we can role model with how we now change and evolve and grow. So when you are less reactive in your typical tension moments or a fight or just an emotional moment or whatever it is, right? When you can really pause and be responsive rather than reactive, it is definitively going to assist the dyad. That's
Yes.
all there
Yeah.
is to it, right? Because what you're
Yeah.
doing is breaking out of the known patterns.
Yep.
Now you're shifting it. Your snow globe's a little bit shaken up, and so they need to land someplace that is not their typical patterns. It's going to just kind of take that system because there's a you, there's a he, and there's the we, right? And so that's what we're talking about. It's like you can control you, you
Yep.
cannot control the partner. You have influence of the we. And if you and your partner are coming at it to look at the we, what is best for the we here, to have more understanding, to kind of look at these things together, to be able to actually kind of role model how you show up
Yep.
is going to influence. Another thing I talk to people about, and women specifically, well, everybody really, because in my private practice, I see women and men. My program is for women and mothers specifically, just because it's very, specific. Leading with vulnerability. So when we can get, which is probably going to require some regulation before you do so, because it's very threatening,
Yep.
right? But when
Yeah.
we can lead with our vulnerability, when we can say things out loud like, the story I'm telling myself is,
That's so
right?
powerful. So
So
powerful.
powerful. We are inviting someone into this conversation, into our story, rather than coming at the conversation again with what we already know. We're going to get into our boxing gear and into our stances that we're familiar with because people, human beings, love familiarity. We know what to do
Right.
here,
Right.
right? You're changing that script,
Yeah.
showing up vulnerably, showing up more regulated. Look, it's not going to happen every time.
Yeah.
The other piece is repair. We're talking a lot about repair with children these days, which I think is great. Same thing with couples. So many couples are not used to repair, right? And the
Right.
idea of it doesn't need to be now we have 30 minutes and now it can be great. This is awesome. Can you do really this work of talk to me about, how you were formulated, what role models you had? I read a quote at some point of like, you don't marry the person, you marry their childhood trauma or something like that, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Um, so that's the other piece too, is like leading with your version of understanding. Now, a lot
Yeah.
of people that you may be partnered with are threatened by this. They're not going to necessarily meet you.
Yes.
And that's okay too. Similar to what you're doing for yourself. I mean, if it's okay with you, that's the other thing that women are getting at is this okay with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this the right partner for me right here and right now? Maybe
Right.
not. That's okay. Can you show up together to get to the place that you both want to be?
Yep.
Right? The
Yep.
amount of women, I hate my husband. Oh my God.
I
Right?
know.
They don't
I
understand what I'm
know.
going through. Da, da, da. Great. Okay. What are you doing about it? Show up to that
Right.
relationship to be in a place where you can be vulnerable and where you can be more regulated, to show up fully yourself with authenticity that invites that person in.
Yeah. And I think there is extra noticing when there's another person involved, and this could be your children or your partner, noticing how your message is landing
Mm.
and whether they're able to receive the way you're presenting things. I'm going to give an example because I think it's important and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I, to regulate my nervous system when I feel I don't like confrontation. So when I feel like I have to have a hard conversation, I speak softly
Mm.
and I slow down and I talk kind of like this. Well, in the past 2 years, I've received confirmation from my partner, my older son, and my daughter that that comes off really condescending and like I'm talking down to them.
Mhm.
For me, it's a way to calm my nervous system
Mm.
down. And I thought it would also de-escalate, but in fact,
Mhm.
it created in all three of them a defensiveness. And so I think my daughter said it first, "Mom," like, because I was like, "Why? You can't talk to me. Like, what do you mean you can't talk to me?" And then I circled back with my partner and said, "When I do that, does that?" And he's like, "Oh, it lights me up." And then I talked to my 28-year-old son and I was like, when I sometimes
He's like, check.
I said to each of them, if I'm doing that, can you kindly, like,
Mhm.
I'm not doing it to cause harm and I'm not doing it to be condescending. It's number one, how I feel safe. And number two, I thought it was going to help. I really thought it was going to help. So I'm grateful that all three of them had the ability to receive. My daughter couldn't when she was 13, but she turned a corner at 14 and 15, and now she can. And so recognizing your delivery might not work for everyone and just checking
Mhm.
in. We
And
can't
just checking in.
just
Mhm.
checking in. Like, we can try to read the room and try to see, are they getting triggered? And when we get a defensive response, we probably are triggering them, but we can't read their mind.
Right.
And the story that other people are telling themselves is not the story we think that they're telling themselves. So,
Right. Which is why
in
that's such a
addition,
powerful intro.
it's such a powerful intro. And like you said, leading with vulnerability models for the other person that it's safe to do the same.
How
So,
beautiful in your experience, right? And that's a testament to you, no doubt. You've done this work, right? That it is a safe place to reflect that back to you.
in a million years, I never would have thought that would have caused that a triggering in them. But all three of them said, you go into lawyer mode. And I was like,
Yeah.
lawyer mode? What are you talking about? I thought it was de-escalation mode,
Yeah.
but it not how it made them feel.
That's right. And both are
And
true. Both are true. That's the other thing, right? You not
yes,
doing it wrong. You were
right.
not a bad partner or mom. For you, it was indeed de escalating. And
Right.
your intention was to hopefully de escalate the dyad. Their
Yes.
truth was that it didn't. Both
Right.
things are true.
And I think that we haven't touched on this yet, and I don't think we have time to go down this road, but I love, and I've had the conversation with everyone important in my life that I engage with often, my children, my partner, the intent versus impact
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
is really, and acknowledgement is really important.
Mhm.
What you intend, I intended to de-escalate and keep my nervous system under control so that I could be open and they could feel safe with me. But the impact was the complete opposite. And so for me, I have to change and have an awareness around how I have hard conversations. I have
Mhm.
to change because I love all these people and I
Yeah.
don't want to impact them that way.
Right. Right.
And there is a lot of kind of self-awareness and also taking ownership of impact,
Mhm.
even when our intent is different. And that is
Well,
such
that's the
a
thing. At a
mindful
certain,
practice.
yeah, yeah. And at a certain point, I mean, I like my whole practice is about awareness and intention, right? So, like, I, in a couple or a group system, the intention is probably less relevant than how it actually landed.
Yeah.
Right. And so, at a minimum, to sort of be verbalizing that. I've talked to couples sometimes. I don't work with couples anymore, specifically, but with my individuals about when they're in their couples, of like, sometimes it's going
Mhm.
to take real awkward conversations where you're like really saying aloud so many things that feel like they're not important to say out loud.
Yeah.
I'm saying this and I recognize that my tone might be, and my intention is this. And I know intention isn't the thing because I want to be sensitive around this area. And I just, you're sort of really going through it all while you're kind of weaving that tapestry of growth together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's a lot. The beauty of it is that, and it sounds like you and your partner have gotten there, which is a beautiful thing, is that we have this opportunity, especially with those we are closest to co regulate. So we
Yeah.
can see that, we can ask for that, right? We know that there is an opportunity, most of us, when we're in this tension point, when we're fighting, we're going to ratchet each other up. And when we
Yep.
can pause and see this is about this person, not necessarily this content or me, or maybe indeed it is about you, something that happened, something that you did, whatever it is, that you have the opportunity, they're in a place you are not, and that you can
Yeah.
co-regulate. I'm
Yes.
also always recommending, it's like, let's process this outside of the conflict. When you're in the middle of conflict is not the time where you're going to say, well, I think your nervous system is avoidant. And mine is that, like, no, we're now
No.
in conflict.
Nope. Nope.
That
Nope.
is not going to be received that well. When you're in a calm, cool moment of, hey, the time that we were able to process that felt so good to me. I felt so seen. I felt so
Yep.
connected to you. I would love more of that. And I think it begins with looking at this together. And I know that may be unfamiliar to you and it might be weird to you. If you're willing to do it, like, I want to go to that place together. Right? It's in those moments that real
Yep.
growth happens because you're going to still peak.
Right. Right.
It's
They're gonna
unrealistic to think that you won't.
right, and they're gonna be ruptures. There are gonna things
Yes.
happen,
Yes.
and it's learning to navigate them mindfully that will improve and enhance the relationship or save it.
Yep. Yeah. And in that moment of back to what's the story I'm telling myself, especially
Mm,
for me, this is, vulnerable share, but with my children, there are times that I can recognize my irritation or frustration in this moment is, of course, because whatever their behavior is totally wildly inappropriate. I mean, period. They're kids. They're meant to, right? They're going to push
yep.
boundaries. This is actually the whole thing. They're learning how to be a human in my house. I'm running a human development lab, right? So this is the idea. It doesn't make it easy, but this is the whole concept.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes my story, and right now, even saying this, I feel yucky even reporting it, right?
Yeah.
Is like, I do this for a living. I'm a therapist. I talk to people all day about
Right.
regulating and etc. And how can I be raising a kid who spoke to me that way? And to really pause and recognize that's a story going on for me right now. Hold up.
Right.
This has nothing to do with my professional credentials. And in fact, that
Yeah.
part of myself does not get to lead while my 13-year-old is having a moment.
Right.
That's based on his hormonal chaos. Whatever the thing is in front, vulnerability that is hard to express. Like, can I be in this and be wildly and deeply uncomfortable as a mom rather than having the part of myself leading that feels like this is offending my professional identity?
Right.
Do you know
Or
what I
you as a
mean?
person because of your child's
Behavior. Yeah.
actions.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
they are not. I say this so often, right? It's like they are not, and I say it to myself, by the way, more than to clients, to myself. They are not clay, they are fragile pottery, right? We are not forming them into who they are. We are trying to sort of shepherd them through in these fragile moments and protect
Yeah.
them from breaking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I know that we need to wrap up, but I would love it if you could give listeners one gentle practice that they could do
Great.
tonight or today, something
Yeah.
that begins to shift their inner world.
Okay.
What would that be?
We've talked so much about breath, so I think we should just start there.
Mhm.
And by the way, it does not have to be eyes closed. I love that. And if you're comfortable doing it, close those eyes, but you can also just have a focal point, right? It can be a space in your office, something in your bedroom, something out the window, just a place where you can gently rest your visual field. And then taking a big breath in through your nose and stretching up in the spine. And release. We're going to let that breath resume a natural rhythm and be sure that it goes all the way through to the belly, feeling it rise and fall like that baby we spoke of. Bringing your attention from your head, neck, and shoulders, and see if these next breaths can be a nice, gentle touch to those areas and release. Any further, just anchor down a bit more into your seat and let go. Hand on heart, and feel yourself in this space and time showing up for you. This is where it begins, and it has an opportunity to transform. You can stay as long as you need and as long as serves you, or that can be enough. You can access that in a bathroom, in a break, in any moment of privacy, knowing that you can show up for yourself with a bit of compassion and releasing what you are holding so that your brain can have some intention of how you want to show up at the next given moment.
Thank you so much for that. That was wonderful. So, for listeners, if today's conversation stirred something in you, If you recognized your own exhaustion or reactivity or even just a longingness for steadiness, I want you to know that this awareness is not a problem to solve. It's an invitation. Maris reminds us that healing often begins not with doing more, but with pausing long enough to feel what's already there and to regulate and soften and remember ourselves beneath the roles that we were carrying. So, if you want to learn more about her work at Maris, I'm going to say it, Pascal,
Pasquale.
Pascal Doran .com. You can find her programs and offerings in the show notes. I'm going to have her social media, everything there listed. Maris, thank you so much. This was such
This
a
conversation.
wonderful conversation. I feel like we might need to have more, but
Yeah,
this
I
was
know.
good. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me. I wish we could follow up and go have coffee now, but you enjoy
Yes.
Florida. And you got my contact. Outreach anytime. It's great to connect with you. I'd be open to any sort of collaboration in the future. This was a great conversation. Thanks for what you're doing, Leslie.
Thank you.